Hey yo.
Hi.
Oh sweet, we're just doing a normal.
Yeah, since I'm gonna demonstrate the some features of the wallet and things like that, and I would need like video support for that. So we're not gonna be using the Discord stages today. Let's make sure everybody joins. Let's oh hi Captain. Um yeah, so hi Shane.
Hi.
Hi Darren.
Hey Eric, how's it going?
It's doing great. I just started the event. Let's get people to join. They
Yeah,
just
we'll make a little.
We can also message the Chinese people.
Yeah, maybe I'll leave a note in Telegram.
Nice, nice. Getting more joining.
Hey.
Very nice.
Let me. Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Hi, guys.
No, we can't hear you, Shane.
Yeah,
Yes, we've got some more people today. That's cool.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
I've been greeting everyone and then no one said anything.
Oh,
So I'm like, what is going on here?
hey.
Hi.
Dang, yeah, we did get a bunch of people this time. That's really good.
Definitely. It is definitely
Ooh,
very good.
thank you guys for coming. We've had a couple of these and we've had like I think two or three people was the most we've had.
Yeah, definitely.
Technically I think we had like eight or nine, but it was mostly our team.
Yeah, definitely.
Two unique
And
people.
and they've all been really good. So all these people
Yeah.
missed out.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Code Master. It's a cool name.
Hello, guys.
Do you have any toads?
No, unfortunately not.
Dang. It's also Dowd T in reverse.
Yeah,
All
definitely.
right. Well, maybe with so many new people, maybe we should do some reintroductions.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Is Mead here though? I don't think
Meat
Mead's here.
is. Meat
I'm
is.
here.
Oh,
I slid in
where?
the back.
There you are. Yeah, you just slid in.
Yeah.
Can't see me. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shame.
So you want to start off, Eric?
Definitely. So my name is Eric. I'm the founder and CEO of Themelio, and we're really happy to have so many people on our community call today. And feel free to just ask questions and chat about Themelio. It's not like a really formally organized thing. Just feel free to speak up whenever, honestly. So yeah, I guess the rest of the team can introduce yourselves too.
I'm Shane.
Do you think?
Oh, that he's the next most important. So you can,
Oh, that's what we're doing. We're doing rankings.
we can do it that way. I don't really care.
Yeah.
No, continue by all means.
Yeah, I'm Shane. I'm a front-end developer, and I do. I work on Ginkgo a lot, we call it Melis now, the wallet. I also am the one that is responsible for sending you y'all's tokens. So if you didn't get any Mel, then you can cry to me about it. Or Artoria, he is also now here.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I also work on the CI stuff, or some of the CI stuff. It's actually getting replaced right now, and the command line interfaces as well.
Is somebody's phone buzzing? Just like,
That is my phone.
okay. Anyway, yeah, so perhaps, Need, you can go next.
Sure. So I'm the head of DevOps here at Themelio. I'm the guy that makes, as I'll describe, the systems stay up happily and boringly so that everyone gets to enjoy all the fun.
Yeah, and I guess, Marco, you can go on.
Yeah. So, like Eric said, my name is Marco. I'm basically working on the smart contracts here at Themelio, working on getting a bridge so we can move our Mel and Sims over to Ethereum and back. So that's basically what I'm working on at the moment. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good intro.
Cool. And Darren is I guess you could also introduce yourself. You're muted, Darren.
Only so many mute buttons, Darren.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm helping out on the community front, and yeah, trying to bring more and more lovely people here. So super happy to see a bunch of new people here today. That's really great. So
Cool. Artoria, do you want to introduce yourself? You're like our new community manager.
Yeah, but my English is not good, so I think
It's not
It's
bad.
okay. Don't worry. I think it's good.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I mean, that was a good introduction.
Yeah. Yeah. So
He politely chats to everyone.
Yes.
Also, I don't know if you guys noticed, but Jay's here as well.
Yeah, I
Oh,
did
yeah,
notice Jay's
right.
here. I wanted to mention.
Someone let that
Hey, what's up,
thing
guys?
in.
hi.
Yeah, it's an open chat, so
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
It's
say
fair.
anything.
Yeah.
He's responsible for Melodion, which you guys haven't heard about yet.
Yeah.
We get to blame him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's our high-level language. That,
Definitely.
someday y'all will know how to write covenants in, and me too. I don't know how to use it either. So
Yeah, so it's definitely something we'd like to touch on today too. Kind of like as our next big software release, which is Melodion, our covenant language. So covenants are essentially our equivalent of smart contracts on other blockchains, and you'll all learn all about it once it's released.
super cool.
Nice.
okay.
By the way, if you're not talking, just please mute yourself because otherwise there's like random sounds constantly and it can be distracting. So,
Yeah, that's a good call out.
Shane.
All right.
Oh, me.
Okay, well, I guess it's been a super busy and exciting, dare I say, stressful week or so in crypto for an awful lot of people.
yeah.
Anyone from the Themelio team like to jump on that? I guess a lot of the things that happened, some of it is particularly relevant to what we're all doing here
Definitely.
at Themelio. Eric, do you want to have a take on that?
Absolutely. So I think just as a general downturn, it's nothing too surprising. I mean, we've seen crypto crashes like this in the past. And honestly, I think that all the really solid projects like Bitcoin and Ethereum, they didn't see catastrophic losses, right? It was more like 20-30% over the week. But definitely the most interesting thing that happened was the total collapse of the whole Terra ecosystem with like UST depegging and Luna going to zero. Yes, and it is definitely relevant to what we're building at Themelio because we're also trying to make a stablecoin, right? And I think like the biggest thing I would say is really that Terra and UST has always been insolvent, right? Like their whole economic foundation has always been really problematic. And it's honestly not that surprising that the depeg would happen once once we actually have like the once the depeg happened that Luna would go to zero. And I'm actually right now writing a blog post on this, so hopefully I'll get it out today and share it with you guys about my thoughts on stablecoins, on UST, and what this actually means for designing a stablecoin, and of course why Mel doesn't have the same problems as Terra. But honestly, I think like that's probably the biggest thing that happened this week, the whole Terra drama. For the rest of the crypto markets, yes, it went down, but it's nothing too catastrophic, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, a good opportunity to buy the dip.
Yeah,
Don't buy the dip. Don't
mean-
buy the dip. The crypto dip?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, buy the crypto dip, but don't buy the Terra dip.
Well, all in on Terry, guys. It's gonna moon.
No, dude. Oh no.
Yeah, I'll just throw out there that I actually shorted USDT. I was really hoping it was all just gonna crash and burn.
Oh, you shorted it for real?
Yeah, I'm still kind of hoping.
Dang.
Yeah,
But,
Wait, I mean it did. You shorted USDT.
yeah.
mhm.
Like
Did
Tether.
crash and burn. Did you make
No,
money?
UST crashed and burned. USDT had like a little spike down, but because it's like a scam coin. Like I'm just
Yeah,
waiting for
I
it to crash.
didn't know about USDT.
USDT is Tether. I'm sure you've heard of it.
USDT Tether, right? Yeah.
Oh.
It's Tether.
Oh yeah. Okay, fine.
I've been hearing rumors about it since 2017.
Honestly,
But, yeah, I don't know,
for
it's- I
Tether,
have no idea.
I'm just like, my theory is that people trying to sell UST thought USDT was UST and dumped it. And that's the only explanation I have for why Tether like temporarily depegged a little bit. I feel like it's probably that literally people confuse the tickers. It's like people this sort of thing happens, right? I mean, there have been cases where there's this new coin that comes up and then other coins with similar names also go up because people mistakenly buy them. So it could be a similar situation going on.
It's a very
That
common thing that can happen when a new project launches and there's some hype and excitement around it, and then if some opportunists see that it's going to launch on Uniswap or something, and maybe the team give a time, and then these opportunists will create a fake token and add some liquidity and do that half an hour beforehand and make a couple of ETH or something really quick and then disappear.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of thing happens all the time,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But I guess a lesson for everybody to learn as they go. Cool. I guess it might be interesting for all the new people here if we gave a little backstory or a little context around Themelio. I'm sure a lot of people here already know, but maybe there's some that haven't got a chance to go through the documentation, or maybe didn't fully understand all of it yet, and maybe it might be cool to kind of hear it in this form.
I don't even fully understand the documentation yet. So I understand. I feel you. I feel for them.
Yeah. Well, so for Themelio, it really started not as a blockchain project per se. So I was doing my research at the University of Waterloo, and what I wanted to build was actually like a decentralized private communication system. Now, that sounds easy, right? Like you just need end-to-end encryption and all that. But actually, it's not, because once you start building it, you'll realize that at several really important places, you need like decentralized global consensus over the network on things like, what public keys do different usernames have, and, on things like ensuring that messages are not censored and things like that. And before blockchains, we didn't have a solution for them. But blockchains are kind of like, they're decentralized, they're censorship resistant, they're incentive compatible. And I decided, okay, that is the future. And I wanted to build my system on Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that. But honestly, as I dug into these existing blockchains more, I discovered that security-wise, they're really not up to task, because the whole point of blockchains, the whole point of Web3 is that we have trustless mechanisms. We have these mechanisms that run a certain way because of their design, and not because we trust the people behind them. But with existing blockchains, they constantly require governance. You constantly have to watch out for the community, have to watch out for protocol upgrades. It's just really far from this ideal, and it can't actually support this kind of trustless security that I'm trying to build on the blockchain. And I think everybody should be trying to build on the blockchain. So that's how I kind of started my own blockchain. The Themelio started as my PhD thesis subject, which is how can you make a blockchain that actually has what I call endogenous trust, basically trust in the protocol and not in the people. And we got funding from Polychain back in 2020 and started building it. And now it is actually a running mainnet. So right now, when you go to the Block Explorer, it is actually a production-ready blockchain. It's been running for almost a year already. We are still kind of rather early stage on the community and on the fundraising and things like that. We are aiming to do a token sale later this year and to actually launch the MELs and SIMs to the public so that you can participate. But before that, the way you can get into the mainnet is just hang around in the Discord and wait for airdrops, or you can ask other people for some. But yeah, we already have a mainnet. Themelio has been running really well for over a year. Now we're releasing more and more tooling, such as the wallet. Soon we'll release the smart contract language, etc., to the public. But actually, all those things are done. It's just not documented yet. Yeah. You can actually already write smart contracts on blockchain. It's just that we don't have a tutorial on that. We're going to write that. And soon, the idea is that soon you'll be able to build really interesting applications on Themelio and really explore its very different architecture from existing blockchains that's designed for building layer 2s and similar low-level protocols and not applications. So I guess that's kind of the story of Themelio up to this point. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Just I guess as well, if anybody, I've got a couple of things prepared that we can go through, but if anybody has any questions or anything that they'd like to throw out there, just interrupt me as I go. So
yeah, I have something already.
Go for it.
So we've touched on UST and the DPEG.
Yeah.
But can you talk about the Melman mechanism and how exactly we won't death spiral? I think
definitely.
I think that's crucial to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. So I see that you're actually sharing your screen on the UST page. Yeah. It's pretty bad. So I think to understand what went wrong with Terra, we got to understand how their system works, right? So there you have UST and you have Luna. And the central mechanism here is that one UST is supposed to be convertible to $1 of Luna. So the idea is that you can burn your one UST and then get however many Luna happens to be $1. And that Luna is printed from scratch. So the interesting thing here is that UST is not really directly backed by it, right? You're not backing one UST with a certain amount of existing Luna sitting in the pool. Instead, the backing value for UST is essentially the total value you can extract through inflated Luna. So that is the collateral for UST. And what happened with this whole crash is that people realized that that collateral is not enough. Right? There's not enough demand for Luna to support the dilution necessary to support every unit of UST. And the reason for this is actually really simple, which is that Luna's demand comes almost entirely from UST, from Anchor, from this whole UST Luna mechanism. So when UST demand increases and everybody wants more UST, then Luna goes up because the peg operates the other way. People destroy Luna to get UST, and that decreases the Luna supply and makes Luna go up. But the problem is that even though Terra is supposed to be its own blockchain, even though, they wanted people to build on it, in practice, nobody did. And all it was a vehicle for UST and Luna. And so what happened is that they desperately wanted Luna to go up so that it can support UST, right? But the way they went about it is by artificially increasing UST demand by using the Anchor protocol and subsidizing like crazy 20% interest rates and things like that. And this does make Luna go up. But the problem is that it also makes the UST supply go up. And it doesn't really help at the end of the day because, the more UST you have, the more Luna has to be worth to support that UST. So you can't make Luna worth more by increasing demand for UST. So what happened was really that once UST demand started decreasing because people were withdrawing money from Anchor and things like that, then the whole system collapses because the entire Luna value is also supported by more and more people using UST. And that's what you're supposed to count on to support the UST. So once UST demand decreases, its backing also is removed and everything fell apart. And Terra just went to zero. Why Terra went to zero is actually quite interesting. The idea is that, remember, the mechanism is 1 UST turns into $1 worth of Terra. Now, the problem is that people were using this mechanism, right? They were redeeming 1 UST for $1 worth of Terra. But then $1 worth of Terra keeps being more and more Terra because Terra is going down. And then when people redeem this, it prints even more Terra. And it makes Terra go down even more. So Terra ends up hyperinflating. Like, for example, right now with Terra, the entire supply of Terra has increased like several tens of thousands of times since the DPEG. And it's utterly crazy. And the whole system basically collapsed this way. It's like the classic death spiral situation. So that's how Terra failed. So why will Mel be different? Since superficially Mel also has a similar mechanism. We have a proof of stake token SIM, and 1 Mel can be exchanged for 1 DOS worth of SIM, which is inflated. The biggest difference here is really that SIM's value does not come from the Mel. Like, SIM is not there just to hold the bag for the Mel. SIM is a proof of stake token, and with really strong value accrual from usage of the Themelio blockchain. And this is the first part, right? So we already have a much higher kind of implicit collateral in the SIM compared to what Luna had versus UST, because Luna's implicit collateral was really, really small. It was always really under collateralized because most of its demand doesn't actually come from sources outside of UST. So this is the first point. So we actually are over collateralized. We should have enough real economic value to back every unit of Mel that exists. The second, more important thing actually is that our system can't enter a death spiral even in a failure scenario because, so remember like Luna and Terra, when Luna doesn't have like enough market cap to support UST, it just enters an infinite death spiral, essentially like an infinite amount of Luna gets printed and everything goes down the drain. In our case, however, whenever there is a panic in the market, whenever the Mel, for some reason, depegs, let's say there is some horrible crash in the crypto markets and SIM goes down like 10x for some reason, let's say, and there's not enough SIM to support the Mel market cap. In that case, what will happen is that Mel actually would turn off. And this is done through essentially a market-driven procedure, because the way our system works is that how fast the printing and the kind of like burning and exchanging happens is proportionate to the amount of liquidity of Mel and SIM on the on-chain Mel swap market. Now that's a mouthful, but the basic idea is that if people are dumping Mel and SIM like crazy, Melmint actually would automatically turn off. So what that happens is that yes, in that crazy scenario, Mel will depeg. There's nothing we can do about it. Like we literally wouldn't have enough assets to back it. It will depeg, but it will not take the SIM with it. It will not take the whole proof of stake consensus with it. Nothing would zero. It would just basically be like another currency crisis that, fiat currencies sometimes happen too, when exchange rates suddenly change due to economic crisis. And so that's clearly not a good scenario, but the idea is that we're not going to try to self-destruct to support some sort of peg. And it's fine because with Mel's value proposition is primarily not because it's pegged. It's not designed as a US dollar substitute. It's designed as an independent unit account. So it's fine to have it depeg a little from its target if that means we get to save the system at the end. So that's really why Mel wouldn't enter the kind of situation that Terra/UST entered. Basically, first, it's almost certainly never going to actually get under collateralized, and two, even when it does, it's not going to enter a death spot. It'll just depeg. So hopefully that answers the question.
It's a lot. But can you talk about how maybe minters play a part in this whole situation?
Yeah, the minters actually don't play such an important role in Melmint, even though Melmint is called Melmint. The purpose of minters is actually to measure the value of the DOS. It plays the same role as the US dollar oracles play in other stablecoins. So essentially what happens is that by observing how much computation power minters are willing to give up in order to get one SIM or one MEL, and that's measured through the on-chain MEL kits, then you can say, okay, how much SIM is one DOS worth of SIM, and use that to drive the whole peg. So the minters, all they're doing is providing data. They don't really play a role beyond that.
I think that's all I have for now.
Does anybody from the community want to ask anything on that?
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm not sure who's speaking, but would love to hear
If we
your
have any
question.
takers,
Coming
by all
through a little
means,
bit
shout
low.
at us. This is more of a peanut gallery than anything.
Definitely. I'd love for somebody to ask questions. I think maybe people are texting questions on Discord. Let me see.
Yeah, we have one in dev.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess that's a good shot. You can just like post it in.
Yeah, so Artoria asked, is this MEL stable enough? Because I see that the MEL is currently off anchor by about 5%. Well, the whole idea behind Melmint is that it's not a really strict peg. So it's actually completely expected that Mel is, 5 to 10% off anchor all the time. And Melmint is designed in such a way that it only basically like how hard it tries to peg is proportionate to how far away from the peg it is. So when it's relatively close to the peg, Melmint doesn't really do much. It's only when it starts getting 10, 20% off that it starts really affecting the supply of Melmint to drag it back. And it really ties into like this whole idea that Mel is not really a stable coin in the way most people think of it stable. It's designed to have a predictable long-term value and be a reasonable currency. That's all there is. And similarly, I think you should think of the relationship between MEL and its peg to be more like something like, I don't know, the ratio between two different fiat currencies, right? It's relatively stable, kind of, and it doesn't just randomly go up and down like crazy, and you can use it as money. But it's not really fixed to some particular price. in the short term.
Within like 10%.
Yeah, 10-ish%, because also the pools have a certain like slippage in them, right? And right now, for example, a big reason why it's not so tightly pegged is also because there's not a lot of liquidity in the pool. And as I previously mentioned, how hard Melmint tries to peg is proportionate to how much liquidity there is in the pool. When there's not a lot of liquidity, Melmint's not going to have the capital to actually intervene in the market.
I see, that makes sense. Liquidity is a good point to talk about. Getting more liquidity is a good point to talk about how we would do that, maybe with a token sale or something.
Well, of course. I mean, the idea is that once we actually do our tokens, people would be incentivized to actually deposit mels and sims onto the on-chain pool to be able to get the fees, right? So it's the way the pool on-chain works is really similar to Uniswap. There are liquidity providers that can provide liquidity into the pool. They get liquidity tokens, and they get fees from the pool. And Melmint really lives off of that, right? The more liquidity in the Melsim pool on chain, the harder Melmint tries to keep the peg. And it's intentionally like this so that to eliminate death spirals, basically. And so yeah, once we do the token sale, once there's much more Mels and Sims flying around in the market, we will definitely see Melmint maintain a harder peg. But nevertheless, I wouldn't expect it to be harder than a few percent, right? It is always going to be going up and down a few percent.
And do we have any estimates on a token sale?
Well, definitely this year, but really it depends on our community, honestly, because the thing about a token sale is really that it's not just about when the software is ready and when everything's ready. A big factor is, do we have enough people using our blockchain, and are we sure that when we do our token sale, it'll get distributed fairly and things like that. So we don't want to, for example, do a token sale tomorrow and 2 whales snatch up everything, right? So we want to actually have the developer community especially be in a more mature state before we actually do our token sale. And towards that end, we are going to be releasing developer tools for making things on our blockchain quite soon. We are also in the process, we're almost done with our bridge contracts too. And what they do is that they let you move assets like Mel and Sim from Themelio into ERC20 chains like Ethereum, wrapped in a trustless fashion. So these bridge contracts will also not be vulnerable to the typical bridge hacks, because it's entirely based on smart contract logic on both ends. We're not trusting any oracles or third parties to do the bridging for us. And we'll be talking more about that, in a few weeks or so. Probably as we release more developer tools, that would also come up, the bridge contracts.
Hi guys, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Please, go on.
Yeah, so you're talking about Sim and Mel, but I wanted to ask you about your third token. It's ERG,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. What is it made for, and what mechanisms are there?
Yeah, so I think the ERG, it's called the ERG, right? And the purpose of that is a little strange. By the way, could you mute your mic? It's really noisy. But basically, the purpose of the ERG is that, when minters mint, what they do is actually they prove to the blockchain that they wasted a certain amount of work. So, for example, I'm a minter. I prove to the blockchain I wasted, let's say, 10 days of work. And what the blockchain does is that it says, okay, you wasted 10 days of work. Here is 10 times K ERGs. So K is a number that increases all the time. So it'll make sense, right? Just bear with me. And these 10K ERGs then is your on-chain proof that you wasted 10 days of work. Now, because K constantly increases, this is actually only a proof that you recently wasted 10 days of work, because tomorrow, let's say K is now 10 times more than yesterday's K. What that means is that, well, you can only prove you did 5 days of work, even though you did 10. So really, this is a decaying proof that you did some amount of work. So that's the purpose of the ERG. It's a way of proving on-chain that you've done a certain amount of work recently in the form of a token. And the reason for that is then the whole Melman mechanism uses the ERG to SIM exchange rate to calculate how much work is a SIM worth according to the market. Like how much computational power are people willing to give up for one SIM, right? So for example, if one SIM is K ERGs, then what that means is that people are willing to give up 1 day of CPU power for the SIM. And once we have the SIM to computation exchange rate, then that kind of acts like an oracle, so to speak, to drive the whole Melman mechanism to peg 1 mel to whatever value 1 day is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Thanks.
Yeah, I saw that Artoria asked a few more questions in general. So Artoria asked, is Themelio's POS consensus mechanism good enough? Is it resistant to various attacks? Well, yes, our POS consensus mechanism is both really traditional and boring, and also has a few kind of unique parts. The boring part is that it's based on Streamlit, which is a very widely analyzed and very simple POS consensus mechanism. And it's definitely, it achieves immediate finality, and it's resistant to up to 33% being bad, and also has slashing, and just for standard POS things. The non-standard part of Themelio's POS system is that its whole economics are designed to be collusion insensitive. What that means is that when different stakers doing consensus, when they collude, they conspire to, let's say, do something bad, they cannot extract more value out of the transactions than if they don't collude. So that's the property of our whole fee economy, which is really different from both kind of traditional auction-based fees and EIP 155. The whole fee economy is designed for this kind of collusion insensitivity, which really disincentivizes miners forming these interest groups and trying to take over the network, because they can't actually profit from doing so. They can't form some kind of fee cartel to charge higher fees because they're already getting the maximum revenue possible. So that's kind of the unique part. But for the most part, Themelio's POS is rather standard, with a standard security of the POS-based system. And I actually do think that POS has a much higher security margin than proof of work, like POW, because Vitalik actually has a really good article on this, but it really boils down to the fact that with proof of work, your mining machines, your ASICs, they're not tied to your particular blockchain, and they cannot be destroyed if you attack the blockchain. So if you're a miner and you do a 51% attack, there's not a lot of consequence for you, especially if you can just switch your miner to start mining a different coin tomorrow. While in a proof of stake system, you lose your stake. So, and honestly, I think most of the arguments for proof of work over proof of stake are not really valid. Like, people talk about proof of stake is people with more money own the network. But guess what ASICs are? They cost money, right? And people, although there are also a lot of stupid FUD about POW, like, for example, people say it's not environmentally friendly. That's not really true. POW versus POS might be something I'd write a blog post about, simply because of the sheer amount of FUD and misinformation on both sides of that. But basically, I think because Themelio is really security focused, and it's really focuses on having robust crypto economics, and that's much easier to design with POS. So we just picked POS. And when Arturo also asked, when will the stake node build be opened? Well, technically you can stake right now. It's just not very well documented. That's honestly the case for most of our system. Like Themelio looks kind of like an early stage project, but actually it's not. Like 90% of the ecosystem is built out, the layer one ecosystem, like obviously not the apps on top. And everything you want from the layer one, you can do already on Themelio. It's just not super well documented or really well polished. So our roadmap is really next step. We're going to polish and document the smart contract system. And probably right after that would be the staking system. Because for staking, we still want to make sure, for example, we have good integration with, let's say, hardware signing devices and things like that to make like staking huge amounts of coins reasonably safe. Yeah, so that's really the upshot of staking. And Arturo also asked about the new wallets. We'll get to that later in the call. We're going to demonstrate the Android version of Malice. So the next version of our wallet Malice will be able to run on your phone, which will be a very big improvement. Cool.
Nice.
I have a question.
Does anybody?
Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was just thinking about how the software that we build to a large extent can, I think, like influence the ecosystem around it. You know, like a lot of Linux software is like kind of sticks to the Linux philosophy.
Definitely.
But there's also, you know, there's like narratives and other things like within that culture that kind of like tie together the culture. So my question is like, what kind of culture would you like to see and to cultivate with Themelio and the ecosystem?
I would say that the kind of culture that we want to cultivate at Themelio is one that really values doing things properly, keeping things robust, and really focusing on security and decentralization and like just resistance to attacks. And the reason for that is because I think those are the things that actually Web3 should be on, right? If you don't have radical decentralization, if you don't have, you know, far beyond existing systems security, why are you doing Web3? You can like make NFTs on traditional systems. You can make like a database and, you know, record which cat picture belongs to which person. You could, I mean, if you want the metaverse, Second Life invented the metaverse like 20 years ago, and it has everything people think the metaverse should have. You have NFTs, you have like cryptocurrencies on a centralized database, but freely exchangeable on like with dollars. And you have art creation, you have like smart contracts and in-world objects, but you don't have the kind of extreme resilience and decentralization and security that Web3 should have. So Themelio's purpose is really just to do Web3, do blockchain right. And for me, that means focusing on these core values. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. But yeah, I guess like what, I guess just could you elaborate more on what you would imagine the ecosystem and the other projects to kind of look like, and like what would they kind of embody? How would they be different maybe from the other like blockchain ecosystems or other projects today?
I think the biggest difference will probably be that I envision that most applications on Themelio wouldn't feel like Web3 applications. They would be general high security applications that use Themelio to implement some important security properties. So for example, you could imagine, let's say, a highly secure and private social network where, you know, people can fundraise using an anonymous payment channel network with Mouse. And people's identities and public keys are on an ENS-like system on Themelio. But otherwise, it's like a IPFS, like peer-to-peer network. It's not really an on-chain app. You don't log in with MetaMask or your wallet. Most people using it wouldn't know that Themelio is necessarily behind it. And I think I'm envisioning an ecosystem full of these protocols and apps that have really strong security and are used by people who actually need this strong security, and not really the kind of Web3 asset speculation stuff we typically see on these blockchains.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so Artoria also asked a question about why does MLVM sacrifice Turing completeness? And the answer is kind of like it doesn't, right? Like the thing is, MLVM is not Turing complete, but a MLVM based smart contract system can be Turing complete. And the reason is because it's complicated, and I'd like to write more about it, but basically, MLVM programs really encode one state transition, right? Like one covenant on one coin. And it's intentionally stateless. But then you can use it to model a Turing complete system by using multiple transitions of these states. And the reason is simply because, the reason is really because why we sacrifice Turing completeness is really because Turing complete smart contracts require complex gas accounting, and it requires basically requires a lot of stateful actions on the blockchain, and it's harder to scale. It's harder to make more simple, and it makes things like security harder because we can't, for example, prove that the smart contract always halts. It's this classic halting problem, and therefore, it's much easier to hide bugs in a smart contract that involve it not going all the way down and then reverting halfway through. So basically, it's a kind of balance of different factors, but ultimately, MLVM's so-called Turing incompleteness doesn't actually disallow you from writing any programs. It just forces you to break them down in a certain fashion.
I can throw out a plug there that I have a blog post I can put in the chat where I wrote a Turing machine. I wrote a Turing machine in Melodion, which is the smart contract language.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, feel free to post it. I really like that. Cool. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, also Arturi asked, what if Dusk becomes unstable? I think I talked about it, basically Dusk, not the melt. Well, I think that it's really unlikely that Dusk becomes unstable because it's really tied to real resources. Namely the electricity you need to run the CPU, the technology you need, the capital investment you need to build those CPUs, literally the silicon inside and the labor you need to develop them. And it's essentially a rather diversified basket of real commodities. And that's kind of generally quite stable because it's diverse, it's real resources. It's not like a nominal value, like how much a US dollar is worth, which is much less backed by real resources, right? I have no idea what a US dollar would be worth 100 years in the future. It might be worth zero, right? But I know that 100 years in the future, people will still be running CPUs, and they'll probably still value running a CPU core for a full day at some non-zero value. Right? So that's really the difference here. Yeah, smart contract language is very different from Solidity, as Arturio was asking about, because it's not Turing complete. It has a very strict type system. It's much more functional. There's no storage that you can mutate, etc. Again, just wait for the Melodion documentations to drop and you'll see our language. It is very easy to use, but it is very different from Solidity or Rust or your typical programming language. I if anybody else has some questions, feel free to ask. I think it's really just Artoria's questions and me answering them. And
Let's start picking people out and ask questions like we used to do in school.
yeah.
Make sure
We're gonna start at the front and work our way back. I want everyone to say their name and something unique about them.
That's ridiculous. Anyway.
ask a question.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Actually, hello.
Yeah. Hi, Captain.
Hey.
Yeah, thank you. And hi, Eric. And I just wonder if I might ask a question here about like the price mechanism of mail, because I saw in the Mailmin documentation that the Mailmin tries to kind of peg the mail to $1. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, let me formulate my languages, please. yeah, it's kind of, I've got a kind of strange question. Yeah, let me think a little bit. Yeah, so actually one of my question is, it seems the Mailmint mechanism tries to interfere the price of mail by increasing and decreasing, by manipulating the demand and supply of mail in the market of the mail swap market.
Yeah.
And I wonder how would this affect the like real world market of mail? Yeah, and that's actually my question. How does that?
Definitely. It affects it through arbitrage, right? Because the idea is that if on MailSwap, the mail exchange rate is 1 to 2, and on Binance or some centralized exchange is 1 to 3, then people will be incentivized to arbitrage between these markets until they reach parity. So really, all you need to do to affect all the markets is to manipulate one of the markets consistently, right? And so the idea is that if, for example, Mailmint is holding a peg at 1 to 2 on our blockchain, and on another there's 1 to 3, then people would buy, mail on that blockchain, sell it here, and then you use the SIM to buy mail on that blockchain, sell it here, until that also comes to 1 to 2. That's really how it works. So it relies on these market participants' rational behavior to actually enforce the peg across markets.
Is that how wrapped cryptocurrencies also maintain their value? Like wrapped Bitcoin's value?
Yes, essentially, because people can wrap and unwrap and profit when the value is different. And that actually makes sure that people don't have to wrap and unwrap all the time, because they know that, basically the idea is that people would already anticipate somebody would wrap, so they're just going to sell it and buy it at roughly the same price.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. The mechanisms like just prevent you from doing things instead of like benefiting from you doing things.
Yeah, it's the same reason why gold has the same price at every market in the world, right? Because if it didn't, people can profit from the difference. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Captain?
Yeah, I think I'll think a little bit on this topic again at my leisure time. Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to ask questions in in the chat, and I can talk to you about it more later, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're uncomfortable with your English, you can post Chinese questions in
definitely in the Chinese channel, and I can answer them.
Yeah, actually, my problem is that the internet connection is so bad that I actually can't hear Eric very well because I'm in China.
Yeah,
right now,
that's
and the
unfortunate.
voice quality is, Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, maybe we'll clip this part out and put it on YouTube and send you a link so that you can watch it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me try switching the Discord server location to Singapore or something, because that might make it better for you guys in China. Hi. Is the voice quality better now? Hello?
It lagged for a second, but I think I can hear y'all now.
Yeah. Anyway,
Good.
cool. So yeah. So any other things, Darren, we want to go over?
Yeah. So yeah, there was a couple of questions. I had a couple of questions prepared, but I think we kind of covered a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like through the general conversation, which
Definitely.
is great. I guess is it a good time to maybe share
Absolutely.
an
I'll
insight
just
into the wallet?
definitely let me
That could
just
be cool.
demonstrate the Malice wallet to you guys now. Shane, could you stop sharing your screen
gonna
so I
ask-
can share my screen? Yeah. So let me share my screen. So Android Studio. Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet, but very soon.
There we
There
go.
you go.
Yeah, so here you see like this is the Android version of Malice. And here you see on the right hand side you see the device emulator. It does run on actual phones. It's just much easier to demonstrate it in the emulator. So it does everything you would expect the desktop version to do. So you can unlock it and do all these things. And in fact, when you send, you will also be able to scan QR codes. And you can do this on the desktop version already too. It's just kind of useless on the desktop version. So yeah, basically, in the next version of Malice, there will be an Android APK that you can download onto your phone. And definitely let us know how well it works. We'll also be adding support for exporting debugging information so that, when things break, there's more you guys could help with helping us figure out what happened. So yeah, like the next Malice version should come out probably sometime next week. Just stay tuned for that. And another thing is that really basically we're also going to be, if you guys notice, we also launched a forum where people can post and interact with other community members in a more long-form fashion. We will be posting the new version to the forum too, and we will be giving a small airdrop to people who participate in the forum. So don't miss out that. You might want to register for the forum as soon as possible. So that's, I guess, an update on my side.
Awesome. That's
I
great.
think the Android app is pretty hype.
I might have to get an Android phone. I was just thinking about that. Just to get Malice on it, because it'd be so nice.
Yeah.
I'm always on the wallet on my desktop.
Yeah.
Looking at numbers stay the same. Like,
Yeah. My number doesn't stay the same. I'm always giving money away.
Yeah.
And minting. I'm minting a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really cool. We'll probably end up finding bugs where like the keyboard blocks things. That's what I imagine.
No,
the keyboard will slide up and then
it
things will be
shouldn't.
blocked.
It shouldn't. I tested it.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because, like,
even
the
on the
whole-
export key?
Yeah, because like when you
Because I was thinking when you export the key and that error message comes up, it'll like push some stuff down that you won't be able
it's
to click
because
the
like
send button.
the keyboard actually like makes the web view smaller and the HTML just adjusts.
Oh, sweet. I didn't know. I thought it was an overlay.
No, like that's not how keyboards work. Like, keyboards actually shrink the app here.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's a smart way to do it.
Yeah. Cool. So definitely I'll keep everybody in the community posted on that. And also stay tuned for the article on UST we're putting out soon. So it was really great having everybody here. It's our biggest community call to date. Love to have more calls in the future. I actually wanted to ask everybody here, do you think we should have like a bi-weekly or so community call at this time? Like, does that work for everybody?
Works for me.
Yeah, especially people in the other time
it would be
zones.
cool.
Would this time work for you every 2 weeks? Well,
We're gonna start calling things again.
yeah,
Natural glycerin.
we'll ask around. I think like this is also another great opportunity to use the forum because the forum also has polls and it's much nicer than clicking those buttons. And yeah, one final thing is that Captain asked, can we expect an iOS wallet? Yes, we will have an iOS wallet, but after the Android wallet. It's not too difficult to implement that. It's the architecture is similar, but I don't have an Apple device, so it's easier for me to start with an Android version. That's
I'm wondering if that wallet will be developed using native technologies or things like Electron or things like.
Yeah, like so all the platforms now use basically web technologies because that way we don't need to develop a UI for every different platform. So the way it works is that even on desktop right now, there is a web view that looks at some JavaScript, and then there is a daemon running in the background. So if you've used Geth before, my other app, it has basically the same architecture. We are also considering maybe in the long term, we would want to move to Flutter or something, but we're not sure about that because having the web version like that also does make it easier to eventually, as Artoria mentioned in the chat, port it into a browser extension. That would require the backend code that manages the wallet to be compiled for WASM, but that's actually not too hard in Rust. But like that's something in the further future, but it will be easier if everything is already in JavaScript. So that's the route we took. So on all the different platforms, the wallet is actually just a web page locally stored.
Can I make a request for the community so we have a suggestions channel here in Discord, and we've had the Gleam campaign and a couple of different ways to give away ML to people, and we're kind of thinking on the next stage of that, and I have some ideas. But I would also love to hear what everybody else here thinks. Maybe we have a lot of people in the community who are talented in creating, YouTube content that could explain Themelio really well, community, user-generated content, stuff like that. So if anybody has any ideas, I would love to hear them, and post stuff over there in the suggestions, and we can get a plan together next week. I also really like the idea of utilizing the forum, as Eric mentioned, so I think that would be really great. But yeah, just wanted to point that out. Love to hear some thoughts from you all. Does anybody else have any more questions?
One, two.
Calling out names.
Going once, going twice.
KBHcomputers.e.
He's actually doing it. I love that. So funny. I have a question though.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you mentioned was that we need a strong developer ecosystem.
Yeah.
How do you hope to get that, or are you interested in any particular projects that you might want to reach out to, or that kind of general
Definitely.
situation?
I think that I actually don't have anything particular in mind. I feel like once in the longer term, I definitely want to I would want to kind of use reach out to kind of just the general cypherpunk community, people who use Tor, people who use Monero, that kind of thing, because I think there's a lot of aligned values here, and a lot of those projects should be built on Themelio. But I think kind of in the shorter term with the smart contract language and stuff, honestly, I'm mostly going to share it with just the community of people who develop blockchains and who develop these more fundamental technologies, like kind of the ETH research community, so to speak. I think those people will be really interested in exploring a totally different approach to languages and contract design, that kind of thing. Yeah, cool.
That's it for me.
Yep, I think we covered everything that I had on my list from my head. And yeah, I think it'd be great to do this more regularly.
Definitely.
We had a few, and then we haven't had one for a while, but now we've got a lot more people.
Definitely.
And would be great to see the community here, introducing some friends and
Absolutely.
telling them that this is the place to learn all about blockchain innovation.
Yeah,
Nitro
definitely.
actually did ask a question in
Yes.
chat. He said, were there any hard forks?
Yes. I mean, before the network finally stabilizes, which will be like in a year or two, we will have hard forks upgrading the system, adding features and things like that, depending on what is needed. If you go to our GitHub right now, in the Themelio node repository, in the issues, there are TIPs, like Themelio improvement proposals. And those are all, most of them are hard forks. I'm actually thinking about moving those to the forum just for better visibility, and because they're not really issues at Themelio node. But basically, there is a kind of informal governance process we use to propose changes to the protocol that will be merged in the next version before the network actually stabilizes.
Awesome. I guess another point, I think we have this call recorded today.
Yes,
am I right,
we do.
Eric, to say that? So we'll be able to reshare it,
Definitely.
and people who haven't got to join today will be able to check it out too. So that would be great.
Yeah.
Cool. Right. Is there anything else, or should we call it a day?
I think we should call it a day. It was great talking to everybody. Really look forward to our next call. Yeah.
Cheers all.
Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Bye. Have a
Super
beautiful
enjoyable.
day.
Bye.